Productions.
In the early 2000s, Insomniac Games were looking in a new direction after developing the highly successful and popular Spyro the Dragon trilogy. With the new and powerful PlayStation 2 console at their hands, they were ready for bigger and more ambitious projects. In November of 2002, the world saw the release of Ratchet & Clank. It was an instant hit, spawning many quality sequels. Even today, right around its 20th anniversary, the franchise is still going strong. When the first game came out, my family didn't have a PS2 at home yet. My dad bought one in 2003 with plenty of games like Jak and Daxter and underwhelming sequels to PS1 classics. By 2005, I had become obsessed with articles about video games on the internet, and that's where I found out about Ratchet & Clank. Along with GTA San Andreas, it was the first PS2 game I bought with my own money. Because I didn't have a PS2 myself at the time, I still had to wait a few months until I got to visit my dad in Sweden. The wait became unbearable. Staring at the box and reading the instruction manual just made it worse. When I finally got to play it, I was blown away, and to this day it's the RNC game I've played the most. The original trilogy saw an HD release on PS3 in 2012. In 2009, this was one of the first games I ever reviewed, and I made a Let's Play with 2 friends on my old German channel in 2011. Now it has been 5 years since I last played it, and I just beat the newest game, Rift Apart on PS5 for the first time. And that made me wonder, how does the first game hold up after 20 years? Is it still as playable and fun as it used to be? Join me as we explore the roots of the Lombax mechanic and his naive robot companion.
GFrom, the gamer who legend, he's come to show you the way in this world of games. GFrom Reviews.
On the planet Veldin, a Lombax named Ratchet is working on his spaceship. He's told via the Gadgetron help desk that he's missing a robot ignition system. Somewhere else in the galaxy, some kind of robot creating machine malfunctions and creates a small intelligent robot. He sees a message on an infobot and is shocked by its content. He escapes with the spaceship but crashes on Veldin. That's where the game begins. What I have to do first is change some settings. The camera settings are weird. What is called normal here would be called inverted in modern games. I always play with an inverted vertical camera, but horizontally? No thanks. Plus, the camera is really slow, so I put it on fast. We play as Ratchet, and at first it seems like your typical 3D platformer from that era. We can jump and use our Omni Wrench 8000 to destroy crates and defeat enemies. Both reward us with bolts, which act as this game's currency. Just like the treasure in Spyro, these bolts come flying at us when they're close. The wrench is cool because we can do jump attacks and even throw it like a boomerang. If you're confused by all the options, the help desk comes in handy. You can turn it off if you don't need it. These blue things are called nanotech and they refill our energy. Very useful because we can only get hit 4 times. This series is most famous for its crazy weapons. The only weapon we have other than the wrench is the bomb glove. Yes, a glove that shoots bombs. Glover wishes he had this. Most weapons have limited ammo, but we get more by destroying the G boxes. Yes, like a G. Finally, we can check out the map by pushing R3. Here we see where we've already been and where we need to go. The first level is simple and teaches us the basics. Back then, I was blown away by the visuals and the quote-unquote detailed environments. The horny toads, yes, that's what they're called, are a nice callback to the Norks from Spyro. We also encounter our first robotic enemies which shoot electricity. Not a big deal though. Overall, it's a nice start to the game, albeit very basic. Ratchet arrives at the crash site and finds the little robot in standby mode. After a while he wakes up and shows Ratchet the infobot. In it, Chairman Drek, who kind of reminds me of Ripto from Spyro 2, explains his plot to create a new planet for his race because their planet is already polluted and wrecked. For that he wants to harvest parts of other planets, in this case Novalis. The robot wants Ratchet to help him find the superhero Captain Qwark in order to stop Drek. Ratchet agrees because the robot can start Ratchet's ship.
My serial number is V54296.
Oops. I'll just call you Clank for short.
They crash land on Novalis with the old big guy lands on small robot and doesn't notice gag. So this is the first real level. At the Gadgetron vendors we can buy new weapons and ammo. The further we progress, the more weapons become available. I personally don't buy every weapon since the bolts are hard to come by. More on that topic later. What I love about this game is that most levels have several goals and paths we can take, each with a sweet reward at the end. It's highly recommended and often even mandatory to explore everything. The first route I took has a swim and dive for the first time. A little weird at first, but we'll get the hang of it eventually. The water looks a little too blue though. Don't know how else to put it. Bolt cranks can be turned with the wrench to open doors, for example. At first it seems this path doesn't offer anything, but we can bomb this wall to reveal a golden bolt. These are found in every level and are usually well hidden. The game doesn't tell us what they're good for yet though, but I'll look for them anyway. They're so shiny.
I love gold!
Next it's off to the waterworks where we use these stalactites as platforms. Another gold bolt requires us to do wall jumps. Pretty self-explanatory. After some easy platforming we meet a plumber who has an infobot. But that cheap bastard wants 500 bolts in exchange. Times are tough, so yeah, here you go. It shows the famous hoverboarder Skidmec Marks and his agent crash landing on Aridia. We don't fly there yet because, well, we crashed our ship. So now it's off to the main part of the level. I love this place as it has a nice mixture of nature and futuristic buildings. It's a small but open area filled with robot enemies. Shit's going down with missiles destroying the bridge. Oh boy, is this the first boss? Nope. Destroy the whimsy robots and save the mayor. Because he thinks we're assassins, he not only gives us another infobot but also one of his ships. We're mobile again. The infobot is a commercial by Captain Qwark for Big Al's Robo Shack in Metropolis.
So if you're fighting crime, or just fighting grime, come to Al's Robo Shack in Metropolis for all your robotic repairs.
Clank concludes that Qwark has to be there. Novalis is a great display of what makes this game so much fun. It has action, platforming, humor, and amazing visuals for their time. Just the fact that we can choose ourselves where we want to go first gives it a sense of exploration and freedom. It's not an open world in that sense, but I appreciate what we have here. Now we can choose where we want to go next. For strategic and time-saving reasons, I'll fly to Metropolis on planet Kerwan first. Metropolis is probably the most classic level in the entire franchise. Like the name suggests, it's a big city with flying vehicles all over. Here I bought my first weapon, the blaster. Just a pistol with high fire rate. There are two paths we can take. First I went to Captain Qwark's fitness challenge, which is basically just a mildly challenging platforming section. More scary is Helga, a somehow overweight robot with a creepy German accent.
Oh yeah, but it is weak.
She makes us pay for our price at the end, which as someone who has lived in Germany for most of his life is too close to home for my taste.
You have to give me the price, I earned it legitimately.
For 1000 bolts we get the swing shot, maybe the most useful gadget in the game. It's used for latching on to Versa targets and to swing across gaps. It's so much fun to just swing around like an idiot. Whee! On to the main part. We traversed the city and run into a bunch of new enemies. Still easy stuff. Big Al gives Clank a helipack upgrade for a reasonable price. Now Clank finally becomes useful during gameplay.
Ratchet, am I cool now?
We can reach higher places, glide, and much more importantly, use the stretch jump, which I often use to get things going a little faster. This machine right here spits out little enemies constantly, so better destroy it as fast as we can. Here comes a part I really like, a train sequence. It's by no means as exciting as, let's say, the train level in Uncharted 2, but back then I thought this was impressive. At the end we get another infobot with coordinates to Eudora. Metropolis is an absolute joy. It's just straightforward and simple, yet highly entertaining stuff. Very deserving of its classic status. On Aridia we meet Skidmec Marks, who needs to be rescued from sand sharks. As a reward he'll give us one of his hoverboards. I love how Clank is so focused on the mission to find Qwark, yet Ratchet doesn't take it as seriously and wants to have some fun. This is a fairly easy mission that doesn't necessarily require any weapons except the wrench.
Just like in Tomb Raider, I like to save my ammo for more difficult encounters.
With our new hoverboard that we don't get to use here, we can move on to a different part of the outpost. Here comes a swing shot section where we get more familiar with the gadget. And that's why we visit Metropolis first, kids. Pretty straightforward, but also enjoyable. At the end we get a trespasser. With this thing we have to complete laser puzzles in order to open doors. We have to aim the lasers at receptors on the outside ring to turn them green. This first one is very simple. On to the main part. This area is filled with conveyor belts and robots with flamethrowers. It marked my first death because I totally forgot how bad the automatic aiming is in this game. I pretty much never rely on it because it just doesn't work well at all. You can't even strafe. It's better to aim manually or just smack the shit out of everyone with the wrench. For now anyway. We meet Skid's agent who wants to sign us as his new client if we win a hoverboard race on another planet. So I guess we'll return later. Aridia is another fun level with varied sections and an awesome feel to it with its starry night sky. All that's left is to fly to the forest planet Eudora. Not Endor. Eudora, silly. Here we get to use the trespasser a couple of times, but the puzzles are still very undemanding. The platforming gets more complex with a great mix of jumping and swinging. There's the evil robot from the video. Man, what a wuss. He leaves behind an infobot with coordinates to the Blarg Tactical Research Station. The main path has us fight against lumberjacks and blargs with blasters. At the end we get a new weapon with the most appropriate name in history, the Suck Cannon.
I think no joke is as great as the one you're thinking of right now.
It sucks up small enemies and uses them as ammo. A great way to save ammunition for the other weapons, by the way. I gotta be honest, this is the most forgettable level and in my opinion it didn't really need to exist. It looks the same as Novalis and doesn't really move the plot forward. Not bad, but unremarkable. The research station in Nebula G34 shakes things up. We get to play as Clank for the first time because Ratchet can't breathe in space. Makes sense. I was pleasantly surprised to see this the first time around. After all, in Jak and Daxter you couldn't play as the latter. I'm glad this game didn't miss out on this opportunity. Clank of course doesn't have any weapons and his moveset is quite limited. He still uses his propellers to hover and can punch small enemies. The bigger ones, no chance. That's where these little fellas come in handy. Gadget bots follow you around and listen to your commands. You tell them to follow, wait, attack and enter. Some doors require a certain amount of bots to enter a portal in order to open. So it's important to keep them alive. In case they die, they respawn where we first found them. Clank finds a hydro displacer, which we'll get to use elsewhere. As Ratchet, we can explore two areas. First, we take a short flight to a warship. After defeating a few enemies, the game asks us if we want to push the big red shiny button.
Usually a big red shiny button brings us ice cream, right?
A self-destruct feature?
So no ice cream?
We have 45 seconds to get the hell out of here. These dumbass monsters didn't seem to get the memo. Get out of my face, I need my sweet stuff, now. Oh shit, that was close. At least we get another infobot with coordinates to Blackwater City. The level was easy so far, but I remember having trouble with the upcoming main part. That's probably because I didn't suck enough.
I had to say it at some point.
The suck cannon helps out a lot in these corridors. Some of the trespasser puzzles aren't mandatory, but I highly recommend doing all of them. In this case we open a door filled with crates. Big money! These beasts are the first tough enemies. I like to throw bombs at them from a safe distance. At the end we faced the first boss with its own life bar. The boss itself doesn't really do much but run after us and summon minions. However, this is where the limitations of the controls become more apparent. Without the ability to strafe, aiming is a pain. Good thing I bought the Glove of Doom. This weapon summons 4 small bots that run after enemies. They make this fight much easier. Beating the boss rewards us with grind boots, after paying for them. How dare this scientist not give me those for free? With these we can grind on rails, Sonic the Hedgehog style. Nebula G34 is what I would call the first challenging level. I had no real problems this time, but I remember struggles of the past all too well. If you take your time, it's not that hard though, and there's fun to be had. I especially like Clank's part, a nice change of pace. Blackwater City has 2 ways we can go. If we take the swing shots, we get to the sewers. Don't fall into the water or you'll get Jak and Daxter flashbacks. Here we first get to use the Hydro Displacer. With this item we can raise and lower the water level. The whole area is based around this mechanic. At one point the room gets flooded and we have to race through a corridor. This part used to give me major headaches back then because it's so unforgiving. On this run I made it on the first try and I felt like I accomplished something amazing. By bribing Qwark's bodyguard we get to meet our green hero. There's just something fishy about him, but he invites us to his headquarters on planet Umbris. The other part of the city is more action oriented. The enemies get a bit tougher and there are even tanks. Well, the tanks are wimpy if we keep our distance. Just a few shots with the blaster are enough to blow them to pieces. These slimy bastards are obnoxious because they multiply if you hit them. A strange and mysterious dude wants to sell us the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. Wow, awesome!
What's a rhino anyway?
Rip ya a new one.
What did you just say to me?
150,000 bolts? Are you kidding me?
If I've counted correctly, this must be around my 7th playthrough and I've never even come close to racking up that many bolts. So I've never used the Rhino in my entire life. My one and only regret.
The part with the lasers looks interesting, but it just boils down to beating a few enemies at a time. More worthy of our attention is the hoverboard race. I love this part. The controls are great and it's fun to jump through the rings that give you a speed boost. You can smash through the slime enemies, but watch out for the explosive crates. One mistake is often enough to make a win impossible. It was close, but I won on my first try this time. Nice. The reward is a Zoomerator, which is an upgrade for the hoverboard. I have mixed feelings about Blackwater City. I enjoy the sewer and the race as both provide a decent challenge. The rest drags on a little too long for my taste. Not my favorite level, but still a decent ride. As we arrive on Umbris, Qwark just pretty much leaves us to die on his challenge course. There is only one path forward and everything wants to kill us. Spiked orbs that follow you around, automatic machine guns, you name it. I mostly try to shoot the orbs from far away, but it's tedious. The turrets can only be deactivated temporarily. What do these green buttons do? Oh my god, I solved a puzzle! I'm such a genius! Later these buttons are more spread out and they're on a timer. Ah shit, I messed up that jump. What? I have to start from the beginning?
Yeah, now I remember why this game in general gave me a hard time back then. There are barely any checkpoints, which means you have to repeat large chunks of a level when you die.
Worst of all is that you don't regain your ammo. So if you die a lot and have to buy ammo constantly, that will become a problem. Thankfully, I only died this one time, but it still annoyed me. This part is cool because the ugly giant fish become defenseless once we lower the water. At the end, Captain Qwark wants to give us a reward.
There's something fishy going on here.
Hey, that's what I said. Turns out, Qwark is not the hero we thought he was. What a turncoat. So now we have to fight a giant snaggle beast, which is the second boss and reminds me a lot of a boss from Spyro Year of the Dragon. It's fairly easy, just avoid everything he throws at you and keep shooting. Then we have to lure him over the bridges, which then collapse. It's alright and definitely better than the first boss. An infobot recording shows a planet getting attacked by the Blargs. Ratchet is pretty pissed about Qwark's betrayal however, and our heroes have an argument. Clank wants to focus on the mission to stop Drek, whereas Ratchet acts like a little brat and wants to go after Qwark. Too bad he needs Clank to start his ship. Umbris is a level I'm not too keen about because it's a bit repetitive and too heavy on the combat. The game has ramped up in difficulty by this point, which I appreciate more today than when I first played it. The new coordinates take us to Batalia. We're in the middle of a war here and it's kind of depressing with all that rain. This stage is a little less linear as we again have two paths. First, there's a grind boot section where we have to jump through rings, over gaps and even from one rail to another, all while avoiding mines. I find it very exciting and this is one of my most cherished parts. I even got my first skill point, which returned from the Spyro series. These unlock goodies in the menu. At the end we have to pay a dude for an infobot with new coordinates to Gaspar. Ratchet is ruthless towards Clank. You need to grow up, bro. But enough with the fun stuff, now it's getting serious. Preparing for war, I bought the Devastator for almost half of my hard-earned bolts. It's basically a rocket launcher that automatically targets enemies. Those tanks don't stand a chance. We need to expand bridges with bolt cranks, which is kind of fascinating to see. Due to a closed bridge at the end, we can't continue for now, but we get another infobot with coordinates to Orxon. So now we have two new locations we can visit. We'll be back later. I decided to visit Orxon first. You'll see why soon. This is the polluted home planet of the Blarg, so Ratchet has to stay in his ship. That means we get to play as Clank for the second and last time. This part is longer though and more focused on puzzle solving. I love those little bots that tag along. They have to stand on platforms that open doors, which isn't too much of a brain teaser. Along the way, Clank finds the magnet boots, which we need to progress in Batalia. The level is not over yet though. Here we have to guide multiple bots through raining bombs and a little maze. At the end you can let the bots go wild. It's so much fun to watch 10 of them annihilate these stupid alien swarmers and crabs. Clank finds an infobot that Ratchet shouldn't see. Turns out it's coordinates for a tropical paradise on planet Pokitaru. I'm not going there anytime soon because there's too much stuff I want to get out of the way first. This Clank section was awesome and I wish there was more of it. We'll return here later as Ratchet. Before returning to Batalia, we take a detour back to Aridia and talk to Skiddy McMark's manager. Because we won the hoverboard race, he gives us a sonic summoner. Now we can attract sand mice that help out during our quest. There's only one problem. I usually forget this feature exists as you have to select the helmet first to activate them. That's a shame because they are useful and can save you a bunch of ammo. We could have gone here right after Blackwater City, but I waited until I got the magnet boots. With these we can walk on magnetic walls. Here we used them to get to our golden bolt. As we travel back to Batalia, we leave Aridia for good. Thankfully, we can step on this transporter to get to the closed bridge quicker. With the magnet boots we can reach the other side. Man, this is trippy. Kinda like Super Mario Galaxy, but 5 years earlier. On the other side we shoot more tanks before meeting the plumber again. He's fixing the defense systems. Ratchet offers to help out. With the turret we need to shoot down the warships. It's a mini game that goes on for too long in my opinion, and it gets tiring to shoot down the constant stream of missiles. It's more boring than difficult. The reward is a metal detector that finds hidden bolts. I'm not a fan because you rarely find any bolts and it's time consuming to walk around like an idiot with it. Overall, Batalia is not a very fun stage with the exception of the grind boots part. Again, not terrible or anything, just not really for me. Now it makes the most sense to fly to Gaspar, which is covered in lava.
Every platformer needs a fire level, right?
There's only one goal here, but if you look close enough you'll find two more alternative paths. The first has to swing over lava, shoot down more ships to get a skill point and destroy a bunch of robot dogs. All for a golden bolt. We'll get to the second and better hidden alternative path soon. The main route is pretty straightforward. With the turrets we need to destroy barriers. I hate these things that follow you around. The wrench is pretty much useless here. I recommend either the suck cannon or my new weapon, the Walloper. It's basically a super powerful boxing glove that smashes everything in our path. This might actually be my favorite weapon. It's great for stress relief. BAM!
Gotta love BAM therapy.
In situations like these, I like my bots to work for me. Good job guys, sacrifice yourselves. I mean, look at this, I would be suicidal to go in there. As usual, we get a reward at the end. This time it's a pilot's helmet that lets us fly jets. Sweet! The second alternative path is hidden in what might have been a volcano at some point in time. The cave is littered with robots and they even killed me once because I got cocky. The reward is another golden bolt. Yeah, so even though Gaspar is yet another combat heavy level, I enjoyed it more. Maybe because of the amazing setting, maybe because of my trusty boxing glove. After all this violence, it's time for a vacation, wouldn't you say? Pokitaru used to be one of my least favorite stages. Why do I hear you ask? Because of these fucking spiked orange piece of shit fish pricks. They take 2 hits with the wrench, usually come in large numbers and jump at you. It's really hard to avoid taking damage, especially when you're on this boat. These sections are the worst. Back then I made it harder for myself because I didn't suck.
That didn't sound right. Sucking makes boat trips more enjoyable is what I'm trying to say.
It still goes on a little too long for my taste. Gotta love these bridges. At another Robo Shack, Clank gets a new upgrade for 2000 bolts.
That's right, I am the man.
The thruster pack with the power slam feature can be used on this lock. This opens a garage with a jet inside. I like this upgrade, but feel I have more control with the helipack. Onto the jet. Thanks to the pilot helmet we can fly this magnificent machine. It's equipped with a machine gun, a limited amount of rockets and boost power. Shooting down the small planes gives you ammo or health. All you have to do is shoot down the large ships, which takes no time. Quite fun, but short-lived. Now we finally have an O2 mask. This is great for diving reviving and is equipped automatically. Sadly, this is very slow and it drags. It helps us get to a golden bolt though. There is a second part which is reached by a teleporter. In the pumping station it's back to water riddles and killing slime. Damn, there's so many! I gotta say, some of these trespasser puzzles left me scratching my head in confusion. Here we get my favorite interaction in the entire game.
You will find raritanium for me.
No, I will not.
Cracks me up every time. This dude is willing to trade his Persuader for raritanium. We don't have any yet, so we'll have to come back. Pokitaru isn't as bad as I remembered, thanks to the suck cannon. I still find the boat part to be too long, but this stage offers great visuals and a fun jet sequence. With the O2 mask in hand, there are 3 levels we can revisit. First, the Clank section of Nebula G34. Here we collect a gold bolt as Ratchet. Then we return to the sewers of Blackwater City for yet another gold bolt we couldn't reach before. This is the bluest water ever! Now all that's available is to return to Orxon. Whereas I enjoyed this level as Clank, I've had nightmares about Ratchet's adventure here. But we're doing well so far, so maybe it won't be too bad. My main gripe with this level are the countless crabs. They show up in droves and they can take quite a punch. Mostly they're asleep, but these little flying fuckers wake them up one by one. Shoot them first. We get to a T-junction. I remember both paths being a complete nightmare, so it really doesn't matter. We'll go left first. Ah, shit, not these missile-firing spaceships. I bought the perfect weapon for them, the Visibomb gun. It fires guided missiles that we can control, perfect for large enemies at a distance. It's important to stand somewhere the enemies can't hit you or else the shot is aborted. Contrary to my worries, I made it through here without a fuss. We arrive at a premium nanotech dispenser. For 4000 bolts we get an extra hit point. Yes please.
Too bad this doesn't work with cans of beer. I would be invincible.
There is one more upgrade, but it costs 30,000 bolts. We have 12,000.
Yeah, sucks being poor.
On to the right path. Those crabs, man. We're wasting so much ammo on these guys. They take like 3 bombs each, or 10 blaster shots. It's a slow method, but it works. Oh great, we're being attacked by pterodactyls while standing upside down. I really took my time here and got through without dying once. Only after I got the infobot with the new coordinates and I was looking for a gold bolt did I mess up a jump and get reminded of the awful checkpoint system once again. Even though I didn't have problems with this stage this time, it still ranks as my least favorite stage in the game. It looks unappealing, which of course is by design, and the crabs aren't fun enemies. If you die a couple of times here, you really learn to hate this stage. I know from experience. Thanks to our new infobot, we can travel to the ice-cold planet Hoven.
Every platformer needs a snow level, right?
We saw earlier that the Drek uses a bomb factory here to produce the Planet Buster Maximus, which can destroy an entire planet. Someone has watched too much Star Wars. There are 3 goals here. First we can go to an icy area. It's slippery as hell, but you can use the thruster pack to hover, which makes it easier to maneuver. Here are some more button puzzles and swing shot sections. Falling into the water means instant death and ice cubes for everyone. Touching lasers isn't a great idea either. Need to write that down. Later it gets trickier with platforming on ice. Makes me nervous. Ratchet repairs the drill of a construction worker in exchange for a rock. Of course, this is the raritanium we were looking for. They just ripped this poor guy off.
I bet Ratchet is pretending to be working at Microsoft and scamming old people in his spare time.
The central area of this level is full of so-called ankle biters. They're small but take 2 hits with the Omni Wrench and appear out of nowhere. How many of them are there? Oh nice, a skill point. By wall jumping here we get to one of the more obvious gold bolts. The second path leads through a cave and another water riddle. Easy stuff. We get to another Robo Shack and this chick seems to have the hots for Clank.
I'm not judging.
For 2000 bolts we get the last upgrade for Clank, a Hydro Pack. Now we can finally swim faster and get past currents. The third path involves more shooting again, mostly helicopters. In another turret minigame we have to destroy the Planet Buster Maximus. It takes a bit and these helicopters just keep coming. Destroying it gives us another infobot. Ratchet and Clank want to get to the new coordinates for different reasons and have another fight. Like an old married couple. Hoven is a fun and varied stage. After the suffocating experience on Orxon, it feels like I can breathe again. Literally. The ice can be a bit tedious at times, but the thruster pack helps. Before we get to our next destination, there are 2 planets we should revisit now that we have the Hydropack and Raritanium. First, all the way back to Novalis. By swimming against the current, we get to a cave full of Slimers and a shiny gold bolt. On Pokitaru, we trade Raritanium for the Persuader. With this thing, we get discounts at Gadgetron. Awesome! It really makes a difference. Bye bye, my friend. You'll be sorely missed.
You will bring me more Raritanium.
You can't be serious.
Well, I tried.
My favorite stage has to be the one called Atlantis Orbit.
Let's see if that's still the case. The Gemlik base on Oltanis orbit certainly is one of the most impressive levels from a visual standpoint. This is a straightforward and linear stage with one clear goal: stop Qwark before more damage is done. Sometimes we have to destroy towers in order to knock out force fields. This is a rather combat heavy level with the occasional puzzle thrown in for good measure. The enemies vary from Blargs with turrets to Blargs with flamethrowers and Blargs with spaceships. And these weird things. Visually, this right here is my favorite part of the game. Such a cool, or should I say, hot moment. This next part doesn't mess around though. Damn, these bastards really want us dead. Like deader than dead. They got me pretty good, so I was just about screwed in this next room. Thank God there was a checkpoint right before the machine gun massacre. A rare instance of mercy. This is another room where the suck cannon reigns supreme. I don't know how I could underestimate this weapon so much back then. We find a faster spaceship and now we're after Qwark. You know what this reminds me of? The N-Jin boss fight in Crash Bandicoot Warped. Shoot the highlighted targets while avoiding missiles and mines. I died once because I crashed into shit too much. The boss fight looks cool, but it overstays its welcome a bit. I found it most practical to save all the rockets until the end. Qwark crash lands, never to be seen again. I hope. Not only do we get another infobot, but also a new ship. Ratchet finally realizes that he's been foolish not to take Drek's threats seriously. Wow, some character development. Is Gemlik base still my favorite level? It's pretty great and certainly one of the best, but I'd say no. It's a little too combat heavy for my taste, but I like the linear approach. From an atmospheric standpoint, it's top tier, no question. With over 30,000 bolts in our pocket, we return to Orxon one last time and buy Ultra Nanotech. Now we have 8 hit points. That should make things less tense. Let's get the hell out of here.
Let's get the hell out of here. Let's go.
As our heroes land in Gorda city on Oltanis, Clank gets struck by lightning. He has to stay behind in the ship. So in this level, we're on our own. No helipack, no gliding, just Ratchet and his jumping skills. It's a nice twist and a great way to see how far we've come. This stage has 4 paths, one of which can't be accessed yet. First we take the taxi to the upper city. Here we have to stay out of the light or else an alarm goes off. That's usually not an issue, but I messed up once. Then there's some next level swing shot action. Jumping across tilting platforms while a machine gun shoots at us is another exhilarating task. The reward is the Morpho Ray, a weapon that turns enemies into harmless chickens. Hilarious, but doesn't work that well on bigger enemies. That's why I almost never use it, even though it has unlimited ammo. By walking on this magnet strip, we get to the next area where we cross an icy floor surrounded by electricity while a strong wind is blowing. It sounds harder than it is. This part makes me dizzy. Probably the most challenging Magnaboot section in the game. Just make sure to throw the wrench at the mines rather than hitting them with it. It's much safer this way. As if ice wasn't bad enough, we get electrocuted by these douchebags. Hey, there's Qwark!
The name's Steve. Pleased to meet you.
Steve sells us a Gadgetron PDA for 1000 bolts. Now we can buy ammo anywhere, but it's much more expensive. I never used it on this playthrough. The main path once again focuses on combat and it gets tough. These robots are some of the hardest enemies to fight. I remember that it took us forever on our Let's Play to finish this part, so I was prepared for the worst.
Nein! Focus! Oh, was soll der Scheiß?
Strangely, I again did it without dying. It's important to know when to use which weapon and really be patient. A great time to remember the Sonic Summoner too. At the end we escape from 3 robots on rails. Grinding is always fun. This weird dude sells us an infobot for 2000 bolts. Now the final path is unlocked. It's a nerve-wracking swing shot parkour unlike anything we've seen so far. You gotta play it to fully understand what's at stake here. Holy crap, I saw my life flashing before my eyes. The things we do for gold bolts. This is a really great level. It might even be my favorite now that I think about it. Every section offers something different and has just the right amount of challenge that doesn't feel impossible. Some parts are even thrilling. I'm positively surprised. Man, we were terrible in 2011.
Scheiße!
Durchfall, Scheiße!
Plateau is Clank's birth planet and home to some amazing technology we need. Again, there are 3 goals. First, a short water challenge. Swim through 3 rings to open a door. After pushing a button, we turn off the electricity and have 1 minute to dive to the end of the tunnel filled with laser traps. Relatively easy once we've mastered the controls. This gives us the bolt grabber. It allows us to pick up bolts from an extended range. It's a time saver because the usual range isn't very far. We can't get past this door because only robots are allowed. Discriminating tin cans. Apparently there's only one way left to go then. By now the enemies start to repeat more, which is a slight letdown. We meet a scientist who can transform Clank into Giant Clank. Aw yeah, watch out you pathetic robots. Daddy's in town and he brought rockets. What follows is an arena battle against tons of bad-tempered enemies, but they're no match for Giant Clank. He can punch, fire rockets and unleash an atomic energy blast. His movement is a little clunky or clanky, but it's strangely satisfying to wreak mayhem like that. Sadly, it's over too soon, but we get an infobot with a commercial for the Holo guys. Just what we need to get past those robots. So we're off to the Gadgetron site on Calibo 3. Here we're introduced to Blargs on jetpacks. Their shots reach very far, so never stand still for too long. I like these conveyor belts that change direction when you do. We need that shit in real life. This level offers 2 paths. First, the longest grind rail area in the game. Not only do we have to avoid mines and incoming trains, but also hit 3 switches to get to a gold bolt. The hazards are mostly predictable, but perfect timing is required to prevent pain or even death. Hey, what the hell? Why can't I jump to the right? Bullshit! Anyway, other than this incident, I had lots of fun. We meet the help desk girl who turns out to be a robot. Who would have thought?
I'll see you later.
Bye, sweetie.
Clank's got some serious game, yo. She gives us a map-o-matic which highlights secret areas on the map. Much appreciated. We still have to figure out on our own how to get there though. So how do we reach that green area all the way over there? Teleporter. This is the Gadgetron employee break room. Everyone got turned into chickens, I see.
Now I'm glad they rejected my application.
The main area leads us through several weapon testing labs. Here I just love to beat the bolts out of everyone with the boxing glove. First the robots have bombs, then the Walloper, the Pyrociter, and at last all 3. In between we have to deal with an army of jetpack dudes and these damn flying mines from Gaspar. It all ends with the second and final hoverboard race. This one is a bit tougher than the first. Thanks to the Platinum Zoomerator we can do tricks that give us boost power. I only discovered this feature now for the first time, which is quite embarrassing actually. Don't know how I wasn't aware of its existence for all these years. This time there are rockets you can fire at your opponents. Helps a little. The track offers 2 shortcuts which open by driving through 3 arches each. We have to be quick though. And don't crash into the arches. The respawn locations are pretty terrible at times, as you can see. I failed once but used that opportunity to learn the track. On my second attempt I made it without trouble. So now we're officially a spokesperson for Gadgetron.
Hi. This is Ratchet for, Gadgetron hoverboards. And if you,
Yo, dudes, for the freshest boards in the galaxy, check out the new XZ88 from Gadgetron. It's so hot, it's cool.
I think I got the wrong guy.
The old man gives us the hologuides we needed so desperately. Calibo 3 is an outstanding level that is just fun all around. With both grind rails and hoverboards, I'm definitely sold. Add the weapon testing labs and you've got all the ingredients for a great time. We're back on Qwark 2. It's time to fool those stupid robots. Walking around as a robot is just hilarious to me. Daddy, daddy, look, I can walk! The dogs don't fall for our scheme, but the giant robots really think we're one of them. By waving at them, they let us through. I get a huge kick out of waving at many of them at once. Hello! So this entire section is all about sneaking past the robots undetected. Should they see who we really are, they will rush to this big red button that looks a little like cake. Let's just say the robots shouldn't touch cake. Sadly, Ratchet can't move very well when he's disguised and it's slow going. Strangely, I absolutely love this part. I feel like a very awkward secret agent. It's all in good fun until you die and yet again remember the awful checkpoint system. I messed up a jump and had to do this slow stuff all over again. It's only fun the first time. We can blaze through without needing to be careful. At the end we meet Clank's mother. What a lovely and emotional reunion. She gives us an info bot in which Drek talks about his plans to destroy Veldin, Ratchet's home planet. Now it's personal. Qwark is another highlight for me. The water electricity part is challenging, playing as Giant Clank is a blast, and robot stealth adds even more variety to a game that's already full of it. Very strong entry. Ratchet and Clank infiltrate Drek's fleet in the Veldin orbit. The map shows that we have to get on 5 different ships. First we jump into water and attempt a more difficult race against time to prevent electrocution. It's hard to judge the distance at times. I took a few hits but made it through in time, getting a code bot as a reward. For the longest time I didn't know what to do with it because the help desk lady doesn't say anything. That's unusual. A teleporter brings us to the missile cruiser. Here we're dependent on the holo guys again. Basically we have to clear one room after another and try not to be spotted. That's especially challenging when there's dogs involved, but there's a weapon for everything. These robots aren't the brightest. In goes a big one, out comes a small one, and no one is suspicious. After fighting and sneaking our way through all of the ships, we get to a point where we can't get past Drek's turrets. Conveniently, there's a jet fighter standing right here. For the last time we get to fly around and shoot everything we've got at the turrets. Again it's over very quickly, but I had a blast. Now we can move on. There he is. Or not. Instead we get the final info bot, which reveals that Drek is on Veldin. Drek's fleet is a level I mostly forget exists because it doesn't offer anything new per se. But everything that's here is solid. The stealth sections maybe drag on a little too long, but other than that, I have nothing to complain about. Before we fly to the final level, there's one more thing we can do. We get to Qwark a third time and make our way to the arena. See this weird lock? That's what the code bot is for. It opens the door to a room full of goodies, including a gold bolt. Awesome! We're rich! Let's get that evil little punk. Now it's on. Back on Veldin, we start at Ratchet's garage again. The stage doesn't look as friendly as before with its dramatic dark orange sky. With 49,000 bolts in our pocket, we can finally buy every single weapon from the shop. I'll quickly demonstrate most of them. The drone device acts as a kind of protective shield, absorbing damage. The drones also attack surrounding enemies. The Pyrociter is a flamethrower that's great for killing multiple small enemies at a short distance. One of my favorite weapons is the Tesla Claw, which is really powerful and great for picking off those jetpack idiots. The Mine Glove drops mines that home in on enemies. I never really used this weapon, to be honest. Here's the crash site where Ratchet found Clank in the beginning. This time the level is much bigger and has to solve some intricate trespasser puzzles. Most items are used here. The Magna Boots, the Hydro Displacer, Swing Shot. I find this to be one of the hardest parts. There are so many of these jetpack dudes and they can pretty much shoot across the entire map. We have to hide a bit for them to stop shooting. Some of them are so far away they're hard to spot. Here we need to use the Taunter. This weapon draws enemies towards us. The horny frog needs to walk over a button to open the gate. Come on, just a little more to the left. Holy hell, look how many enemies there are. Well, it turns out we don't have to shoot them but can bypass them through this tunnel. On the other side we can turn into Giant Clank. These assholes don't stand a chance. You wanna mess with me? Come have some. I almost feel sorry for those tiny frogs getting squashed like that. Man, I remember that we played this level for hours on our Let's Play because we kept dying and had to repeat the second half of the level like a billion times.
Bis hier. Nein! Was? Was denn doch? Fuck! No! Wo kommt das doch her? Diese scheiß Kamera.
Now I made it on the first try.
I wish I could travel back in time and yell at myself to focus more. That's the best way to make anyone stay calm and grounded.
Anyway, it's time for the final battle. We take on Drek and his machine as Giant Clank for about 3 seconds. Well, shit. We need our best weapons and the swing shot. I have about 8,000 bolts left in case I need ammunition. But so far I haven't bought ammo once and I intend to keep it that way. This battle takes place on 3 terrains with swing shot sections in between. The first phase is pretty harmless. Jump over the fire rings and avoid the missiles. Make sure to collect all the ammo you can. Once Drek leaves for the next area, we need to leave too before we fall to our doom. In addition to the previous attacks, he now drops tons of mines that follow us around. If I have learned anything from this playthrough, it's that this is the perfect moment to suck. Saves a lot of important ammo. When we arrive at the third area, Drek explains his entire plan like a classic James Bond villain. It's all about money. So relatable. Once in a while a timer goes off and we have to power slam this button to stop it. Then Drek follows us, but we can grind on the edge and escape. It just gets more intense with every new phase. First small robots chase us, then he shoots energy blasts, and in the final phase this green shit is flying around everywhere. I mean, damn! Dying forces you to repeat the entire fight. On our Let's Play back then, we couldn't make it and didn't have any money left at the end, so we gave up. Pathetic!
Nein!
The fight is tough and makes me break out in sweat, but come on. This time I died twice. First I took too many hits and the second time I forgot to equip the swing shot fast enough. It really blows that time doesn't stop during the quick select. In hectic situations like these, it's hard to pick the right weapon because the controls are so sensitive. It took me about half an hour to win. On the third attempt I took my sweet time and only shot when I was certain I would land a hit. Overall a decent boss fight, but very unforgiving and too long given the lack of checkpoints. After about 10.5 hours of playing, the game is over. Drek gets blasted onto his new planet and we use the deplanetizer to destroy it. Bye bye! Clank hurts his arm in an attempt to rescue Ratchet from falling to his death. At first it seems Ratchet will leave him behind, but he comes back and they become best friends for life. A happy ending after all. Aww. After beating the game, we get the option to return to before we defeated Drek or start a new game with all of our weapons and bolts. I've never really done a second playthrough like that. One cool thing is that on Novalis you can teleport into a room where you can buy stronger golden versions of your weapons. You need gold bolts to pay for them. I have all 40 bolts, but I forgot that you also have to pay a huge sum of regular bolts too. Aren't gold bolts enough as payment? And I still haven't bought the Rhino in Blackwater City. Honestly, I don't know how many times you would have to beat this game in order to get all weapons in their gold versions. And only now am I finding out that there's a secret gold weapon room in Oltanis orbit. Crazy, I had no idea. So in all honesty, I'm done with this game for now. Wait, let me show you the decoy glove first. Okay, now I'm done. Maybe I'll go for 100% someday, but not this time.
That was quite the adventure, so let's lean back for a while and talk about the music and sound.
The voice acting is top notch. David Kay, who has voiced Clank in every single entry up to this day, does an excellent job as the little good-hearted robot.
I might be able to gather further information there.
Mikey Kelly only voiced Ratchet in the first game, but I think he was the perfect choice to bring across the stubborn teenager attitude he has in this entry.
That's what I said.
No, that is what I said.
Fine.
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 I really enjoy the performance of Kevin Michael Richardson as Chairman Drek, and is a huge part of why I'm in the minority of people who think he's the greatest villain of the series.
Screw this up, and the endorsement deal is off!
A special mention goes out to Jim Ward as Captain Qwark. Just an hilarious performance through and through.
You can always trust Gadgetron quality, or my name's not Steve.
The in-game sound effects are great too, with every weapon and enemy having distinct sounds. The music by David Bergeau is quite interesting and kind of hard to describe.
It's like he put electronic sounds, rock, and even orchestral music in a blender, resulting in this futuristic, delicious audio milkshake. It's not the best drink you ever had, but when you taste it, you feel right at home.
And that's how I feel about most of the soundtracks from this series. They rarely stick out, but when you hear them, you know they're from Ratchet and Clank. What I love most about this soundtrack is that it's dynamic. It changes when you get to another area. Therefore, most levels have different songs playing in the background at different locations. I'm happy to say that there isn't a single bad track on here. Some are just part of the background, and that's okay. During calm puzzle moments, we usually get fitting music like in the pumping station on Pokitaru. Many songs are more serious and tense, giving me the needed focus to deal with waves of enemies. Blackwater City being a great example for this. Orxon has an eerie feel to it, which fits perfectly with such an unpleasant level. The song that probably sums up this soundtrack the best is the classic track on Metropolis. It feels out of this world and is really long too, with many different varying sections. You never know what to expect next.
There are so many great tracks. I feel the best deserve to be put on a pedestal. Here are my top 5 songs from Ratchet & Clank.
Number 5. This one sticks out as it has some funky elements in the beginning and moves on to this really smooth bass. It's probably the song that reminds me the most of Spyro the Dragon, a huge plus in my book. Number 4. Maybe the most catchy song in the entire game. One of the few that manages to get stuck in your head. It has a very unique sound, almost like it's from another planet. Number 3. Ooh, I get goosebumps when I hear the beginning. This song complements the dark atmosphere of the level tremendously and offers another intense bass line. Love that stuff. Number 2. The first level tune is such a classic and also very memorable. The remix on Pokitaru is also good, but this version slams a little more. It's the perfect introduction to the auditory world of Ratchet & Clank. A very fun track that hooks you on the game. Number 1.
The music in Atlantis Orbit is awesome, and it's also my favorite tune in the whole game.
I called it my favorite track in 2009, I call it my favorite track in 2022. There's something about this one that fascinates me. Just the atmosphere it creates enhances the experience by 20,000 light years. A true masterpiece that sends chills down my spine.
Let's wrap this up.
Ratchet & Clank still holds up incredibly well. It has an insane amount of planets to explore, each with varied objectives. There's a great mix between action, puzzle solving and platforming. Every gadget you collect has a purpose and gets used frequently during the adventure. I could honestly do without the Trespasser. These puzzles appear a tad too often in my opinion. In contrast, there isn't enough swing action. I just want more and more. Such a fun mechanic. There are no bad levels, just some that are a little less impressive than others. The ones that focus primarily on combat are usually the ones that interest me less, which for example is the case with Batalia. The settings vary a lot from fire and ice to huge cities, polluted planets and tropical islands. From a visual standpoint with busy environments, it rarely gets boring with maybe the one exception of Eudora. Just the fact that there are 19 levels that you can revisit at any time was mind-blowing to me. Every single path offers some kind of reward at the end, which makes me look forward to checking out every area. Not all of them are mandatory, so you don't have to do everything. The game keeps it fresh with hoverboard races, jet fighter sequences and battles as Giant Clank. Speaking of Clank, playing as him is always a highlight for me. I also enjoy the humorous tone and the overall story. Ratchet is unlikable for a large part of the game, but we see him grow over time and take responsibility while realizing his mistakes. That's character development for you, something many games in this genre lack. The character animations are great for their time too, only looking awkward on a few occasions. The game isn't perfect by any means. The controls can be a little hard to get used to, especially 20 years later. Ratchet feels a bit heavy and the camera is slow even on the fastest setting. Shimmying also takes an eternity. Jumping, hovering and melee combat works just fine, but the gunplay sadly hasn't aged too well. The main problem is the aiming. Shooting enemies with the blaster without manual aiming is very clunky and often doesn't work. You have to stand at the perfect angle for the game to understand where you want to shoot. This often results in me wasting my precious ammo. It doesn't help that you can't strafe, which is a huge bummer. That's one reason why I heavily rely on the Omni Wrench or the Walloper. Melee is incredibly satisfying and works so well on most enemies. I prefer to keep my distance when I use weapons. Aiming manually works like it should, but you cannot move while you do it. Another thing that drags this game down are the bolts. There aren't enough of them. During my first attempts back then, I usually bought every weapon once I had the money. Well, guess what? That's gonna be a problem when you can't pay for that info bot in order to progress. That's why I skipped most weapons on this run, so I'd never had to grind for bolts. It's not like you can just kill yourself and farm crates over and over again, because they usually don't reappear. I collected every bolt I saw, didn't buy ammo once, and even used the metal detector on every possible occasion, but it wasn't nearly enough. I don't even want to know how much time you would have to waste in order to get the bolts for all the weapons and upgrades plus the Rhino in one go. That's a big turnoff for me. Plus, you don't know what the weapons do before you buy them, so it's basically a guessing game. Some are explained in the manual, but still. I already mentioned that the quick select doesn't stop the time, which can be a problem during battle. Another gripe I have is only having 8 slots. Later in the game, I constantly had to switch items in the menu, which became quite annoying. And yeah, if you die a lot, you're gonna have a bad time due to unforgiving checkpoints or the lack thereof. There definitely was a lot to improve on here, and as we all know, things would only get better in the future. But even with those problems that most likely will turn off modern gamers, I had a blast and couldn't stop playing. This must have been my 7th playthrough, and I'm glad I got through with it with just a few deaths that were mostly my own fault. To this day, it's one of my top PS2 games, and the PS3 version makes it look even better. The HD version is a little weird sometimes. Like here at the vendor. What happened to the aspect ratio? Sometimes the cutscenes stutter a little bit, but other than that, everything ran smoothly.
Is the first game the best in the series? No, but it's the one I've played the most, without a doubt.
It made me a fan, and I've played and beaten all of the main entries and some spin-offs.
Meanwhile, there are 9 games in the franchise, and the first still manages to impress me after 7 years. 7 years, man, time just passes by.
Man, it's been 13 years since I said that. Time sure is a scary bitch.
If you played and liked it in the past, you should absolutely revisit it. If you've never played a PS2 Ratchet game, then maybe the steep learning curve would be a turn-off. In this case, I recommend the PS4 remake. I loved it. I don't recall much of the movie, but I remember thinking it was just okay at the cinema.
With great levels, atmospheric music, all-around entertaining gameplay and funny dialogue, Ratchet & Clank is the full package. A certified classic. It's a personal gem that not only has a place in my nostalgic heart, but holds up today.
Hey everyone, this is GFrom. Thank you so much for watching episode 11 of season 2. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe and follow me on Instagram. I'll see you later. Have a nice day.